Welcome today to the American Institute of Healthcare Professionals Christian Counseling videogram entitled When Bad Things Happen. My name is Moran. I'm with the American Institute of Healthcare Professionals. I'm also one of the instructors for the numerous Christian counseling courses that we do have, and a couple of the grief courses that we also do here. What we're going to look at today is, why do bad things happen? In temporal existence, bad things do happen to good people, unfortunately. And this is something that we have to come to grips with. Due to the sin of Adam in Christian theology, suffering entered into the world. And the moment suffering entered into the world by Adam's choice not to live according to the will of God and how God wanted us to be, we entered into suffering, and that's due to sin. As you recall, in Genesis, Adam would be told he would have to work and toil with the earth, and that Eve herself would experience the pains of childbirth. So suffering entered into the world as a result of sin. It did not enter into the world as a result of God being cruel. However, what we tend to see is individuals, primarily atheists, secularists, who look from a philosophical point of view, and how could God allow suffering and evil in this world? And this is the classic question that they will pose, kind of almost similar to a riddle. They state that if God is not all good or all powerful, how can he permit evil to exist in this world? So if he's all good, why would evil exist? If he's all powerful and evil does exist, why does he permit it? So he's either not all good, being a sadist to allow evil to exist, or he is not all powerful and can't control it. Going back to a Manichaeist type philosophy where evil and good are equal opposing powers in play in the cosmos, and God cannot control it. He's not all powerful enough to stop it. But if we return to Christian theology, we see that the answer really is free will. God foresaw the fall of Adam, but he understood, to be made in the image and likeness of himself, that humanity had to have free will. Without free will, the soul is just basically an instinctive animal. We are no different than the other creations that are on this earth. But due to our intellect and our free will, we are made in the image and likeness of God. However, that free will came with a catch, in that we could choose evil. We could choose wrong. And because of that lack of good, evil would enter into the world, and hence suffering as a fruit of that evil. If Adam would have chose good, we'd be in a different situation right now. We wouldn't be in a temporal existence of suffering. And that's what we refer to as pre-fall Adam in the garden, and post-fall Adam in the world that we all exist in, the world that we inherited from Adam himself. So why is there suffering from a Christian perspective? It's not because God is not all good. It's not because that God is not all powerful. It's just a result of us, of humanity, being created in the image and likeness of God to the point where we have free will. We chose it. Hence, evil is an absence of good, and suffering is a fruit of that evil. And we have to deal with it. We have to consistently look at suffering in the world and realize that it's ultimately not God's fault, but our own choices. Pastoral responses, though, when bad things happen, when someone maybe commits suicide or a tornado rips through someone's home, the theological explanation does not erase the pain of suffering. Individuals tend to become angry with God and look for someone to blame in that first emotional response. It was God's will is something that individuals will use as a pithy type saying, or if someone had just suddenly died, she is in a better place. Or if a hurricane struck and your whole home was destroyed, saying God brings good out of bad things. These are not things or statements that should really be used when someone just lost everything or someone is dealing with a trauma of some sort. It can make them actually lash out against religion, doubt their faith, and so forth. So when bad things such as catastrophes or sudden deaths occur, pastoral responses are more important from an emotional aspect than giving an explanation. Instead, emotionally listen. Allow the person to vent, even if they're angry at God. Also offer a shoulder to cry on and a hand to help. Listening is the best way to handle situations like this. On our next slide, Christ offers himself, though, as the ultimate suffering servant, the ultimate paradigm. So in some monotheistic faiths, God seems to be on a distant throne where when bad things happen, he's not affected in the least bit. But in Christianity, as a monotheistic creed, we have the incarnation, where the second person of the Blessed Trinity takes upon human form while retaining his divinity through the personhood of Jesus Christ. So God sends his own son, the second person, to take on human nature and to teach us not only how to exist in this fallen world and to love us in this fallen world, but also to eventually die on the cross. So Christ suffered throughout life. It's not just the pinnacle, the ultimate ending at Calvary, but Jesus actually wept over many deaths throughout his life. Saint Joseph, his foster father, his grandparents, Anna and Joachim, his cousin John the Baptist was beheaded, and it says in scripture that Christ wept bitterly. His friend Lazarus, who had passed away, Christ wept over this as well. Christ again also cried as he looked over Jerusalem, knowing what would occur after his death and what would become of the Jewish population. So in Christianity, because of this, suffering has meaning. Secularism looks to avoid suffering and to maximize pleasure and joy. Now, while in this world it's not in itself evil to want to have some type of joy in the world. As a matter of fact, Christ would teach the contrary. But when we look at the world only as pleasure and joy to an ultimate extreme, as an end in itself, and we see suffering as something that needs to be avoided, penance and so forth, then we are distorting the reality that what way the world really is. Buddhism also on the list here. It looks to escape suffering. And a lot of the Eastern religions will look to do that because they see existence as an illusion. And in Buddhism, to escape this illusion, to escape suffering, they look for nothingness, or what they refer to as the state of nirvana. And that's the ultimate state of consciousness that you eventually evolve into through a variety of Eastern techniques. But instead of escapism, instead of denial, we see in these two types of philosophies, Christ teaches us, on the contrary, to carry our crosses and to embrace suffering. This seems very unnatural in this temporal fallen world, but it is an essential Christian teaching if we really understand that this is a temporary place, this is a place that is broken, and maximizing pleasure is not the end deal. So through Christ as our high priest, suffering then at Calvary gained a redemptive value. It became transformative via his death on the cross. It redeemed. Through death, he conquered, is a saying they have. And he was able to then rise from the dead over the death at the cross. So we can unite our sufferings with Christ every day with a simple morning offering. In the morning offering, when you awaken, you offer to God everything you do, all of your joys, your trials, your tribulations, your successes, and most importantly, your crosses. You offer them to the Father through who? Our sole mediator, our high priest, Jesus Christ. And Jesus himself offers with us in union with him all of our suffering to the Father. And then that in itself has a transformative, redemptive value on the way of life. Initially, though, on this slide here, we see the Old Testament story of Job. And in the Old Testament, suffering, since it was a fruit of sin, was always seen as a punishment from God, any type of suffering that would befall you. So when Job was punished, lost his family, lost his crops, lost his livestock, his home, everything. Many of his friends, there's 3 friends in the story of Job, they were quite confused. Job was a just man. How could he suffer? And what we learn from the story is Job did no wrong, but instead he offered his sufferings. And in the end of the story, Job is rewarded tenfold. So Job, in some ways, as a suffering servant, an innocent suffering servant, is a prefigurement of Christ later in the New Testament itself. So what can we do with those who are suffering? Christian counselors can sojourn. They can walk Calvary with the individuals. We can't always fix the problem because bereavement is a journey. Suffering due to loss is a journey. So we can help one carry one's cross through simple words of encouragement, love, and understanding. And then later, as the individual's faith grows, or if they begin to heal, then we can start talking about some of the philosophical elements of sin, the result of the result which is suffering, and so forth. But usually these initial conversations aren't the best. But I think, again, if we turn during these first moments, we can look at Christ's own human nature and how he suffered even in the smallest of things. We can also turn to Our Lady, Mary, the mother of Christ, who also suffered her numerous sufferings throughout the world throughout her life, I mean. 7 sorrows that she experienced, flight from Egypt. The moment Jesus was born, Herod was trying to kill him. So that was a thorn in her heart. The prophecy of Simeon, if you recall, Simeon foretold the crucifixion of Christ. And again, it reminded Mary of the little baby she's holding as she presents Jesus in the temple, but that she's going to eventually lose him. Losing Jesus in the temple, that was a traumatic event for Mary. Seeing Jesus carry his cross, seeing Jesus die on the cross, holding Jesus's body as seen in the famous sculpting of the Pietà, and finally the sealing of the tomb. And we can see all of this as an important illustration of how Mary is a paradigm for the grieving mother, maybe a mother who loses a child or so forth. She can definitely relate to this. So Christian counselors can sojourn, maybe not necessarily with the perfect explanation, but just being there, listening, and maybe drawing these types of comparisons and illustrations of how Jesus and his mother can give examples that they didn't just from afar off preach what to do, but they experienced it first before any of us. If you're interested in more Christian counseling topics, AIHCP offers a Christian counseling certification program. The program is online, it's independent study, and it's open to qualified professionals seeking a 4-year certification. So please review the program, see if it meets your professional and academic goals. Here is some information on it. We have here the the site, the link to the Christian Counseling certification. We also have our office number, 330-652-7776. Again, that number is 330-652-7776. You can also email us at our general email, which is info@aihcp.org. And you can use any of those methods to contact us. In the meantime, please have a wonderful day, and I hope that this videogram from AIHCP helps in some way give you a better understanding of suffering and why it exists in this world, and how maybe better help individuals that are Christian or of any religious denomination somehow deal with the grief they are dealing with. Thank you and have a great day.